She was dragged off a plane like a nobody. But what the airline didn't know was this: she controlled $4.9 billion. One phone call later, the airline lost everything. And this shocking story will leave you speechless. Nobody in that airport expected what was about to happen. The plane door was still open. Passengers were still finding their seats. Overhead bins slammed shut. Seatbelts clicked. The low hum of the aircraft filled the cabin. And in seat 2A, a woman sat quietly, scrolling through her phone like any ordinary traveler. She wasn't loud. She wasn't demanding. She wasn't trying to stand out. Until two uniformed airport security officers suddenly walked down the narrow aisle, and stopped directly in front of her. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step off the aircraft," one of them said, his voice firm but tense. A heavy silence dropped over the entire cabin. Conversations died. A baby stopped crying. Even the flight attendant seemed unsure what to do next. The woman slowly looked up from her phone. Calm. Confused. But not afraid. She blinked once, as if trying to understand what was happening. "I'm sorry," she asked politely. "We just need to verify something," the officer replied, avoiding eye contact. "It won't take long." The tension in the air grew thicker. Passengers exchanged uncomfortable glances. A man in the row behind her leaned forward, whispering to his wife, "What's going on?" No one answered. The woman adjusted slightly in her seat and gently placed her phone down. Her name was Alicia Monroe, but no one around her knew that yet. To everyone else, she looked like a regular passenger. Simple clothes. No assistant. No fancy jewelry. No security detail. But what they didn't know was that Alicia wasn't just a passenger. She was one of the most powerful investors in the aviation world. She was the CEO of a global private equity firm. And she controlled the future of entire airlines. She slowly stood up, smoothing the wrinkles from her jacket. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't ask to speak to a manager. She simply nodded. "Okay," she said softly. And as she stepped into the aisle and walked toward the open aircraft door, every passenger watched in complete silence. No one realized it yet. But in that very moment, the airline had just made the most expensive mistake in its entire history. Because in just a few minutes, Alicia Monroe was about to make them lose $4.9 billion. Alicia wasn't just any passenger. She was the CEO of Monroe Capital Group, one of the largest private investment firms in the world, a woman who regularly sat across tables from presidents, billionaires, and global leaders. Every major move she made could shift markets. Every signature she placed could change industries. But that day, she chose to travel quietly. She wore a simple orange blouse, faded blue jeans, and flat shoes. No diamonds. No designer bags. No personal assistant walking ahead of her. No bodyguards clearing her path. She wanted to fly like a normal person. To the flight crew, she looked like just another passenger enjoying a first-class seat. Nothing special. Nothing important. Then everything changed. One of the flight attendants leaned closer to the security officers and whispered, pointing discreetly toward Alicia. "There's been a complaint," the officer said, stepping forward. "We need you to verify your identity." The tone wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. But it was cold. Phones slowly started to come out. Passengers sensed drama. You could feel it in the air. Alicia remained calm. She reached into her bag, retrieved her boarding pass, and handed over her ID without hesitation. Her hands were steady. Her expression neutral. The officers studied the documents. They exchanged quick glances with each other. Still, their faces didn't soften. "We're going to have to escort you off the plane," one of them said. The shocked whispers grew louder. "She didn't do anything. Why are they taking her? This doesn't feel right." A mother pulled her child closer. A businessman frowned. Someone quietly started recording. Alicia slowly stood up from her seat. She didn't demand answers. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. She adjusted her blouse. Smoothed her sleeves. Lifted her chin. And she walked down that aisle with her head held high. Every step was silent. Every stare was heavy. Every heartbeat in that cabin felt louder. But as she crossed the threshold of the aircraft and stepped back into the terminal, she made a decision quietly in her mind. A calm decision. A cold decision. A calculated decision. They would regret this. And the terrifying part? She didn't need to raise her voice to make it happen. What the airline didn't realize was this. Alicia wasn't just a CEO. She wasn't just important. She wasn't just powerful. She was the key to the airline's future. Just hours before boarding that flight, Alicia's company had finalized a $4.9 billion funding agreement with that very same airline. It was the kind of deal that leadership teams dreamed about, one that would rescue struggling departments, unlock new international routes, buy modern aircraft, and keep thousands of employees from losing their jobs. This wasn't a small partnership. This was survival. And Alicia was flying that day to personally sign the final approval documents. She didn't want lawyers to do it. She didn't want board members to handle it. She believed in showing up face to face when something mattered. But instead of being treated like a business partner, she was treated like a problem. The cold cabin. The suspicious glances. The unnecessary humiliation. Off the plane, inside the quiet terminal hallway, the security officers stood behind her. Their confidence was gone. Their voices were lower. "There's been some confusion," one of them said awkwardly, shifting his weight. Alicia turned slowly. Looked him straight in the eyes. And for the first time, her calm face hardened. "No," she said softly. "There hasn't. There was no yelling. No insults. No threats. Just truth." She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. The same phone that controlled companies. The same phone that moved billions. The same phone that could rewrite this airline's future in seconds. Her fingers hovered over the screen for a brief moment. Then she pressed a single contact. When the call connected, she spoke in a quiet voice that carried absolute authority. "Cancel the deal," she said. There were no long conversations. No explanations. No hesitation. Just two devastating words. On the other side of that call, an entire legal team froze. Finance teams stopped breathing. And a $4.9 billion lifeline disappeared. In silence. As she slipped the phone back into her bag, Alicia didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply walked away down the terminal corridor. Leaving behind an airline that had no idea what it had just lost. Within hours, everything changed. What had started as a quiet, embarrassing moment on a plane turned into a full-scale corporate disaster. Inside the airline's headquarters, panic spread like wildfire. Executives stopped their meetings. Assistants ran through hallways. Phones rang non-stop. Emails flooded inboxes. Board members demanded emergency conferences. Lawyers were called in. Finance teams stared at screens that had suddenly turned red as the first rumors of the canceled deal began to leak. The company's stock price started to shake. Investors grew nervous. Every second felt heavier than the last. That's when the CEO of the airline realized something was terribly wrong. He rushed straight to the airport. Not to save face. Not for the cameras, but out of pure fear. When he arrived, he searched the VIP lounge like a desperate man looking for the only person who could save him. And there she was. Alicia Monroe. Sitting calmly by the window, sipping water, scrolling casually through her phone, as if an entire corporation wasn't collapsing in real time. He approached her quickly. "Ms. Monroe, this was a misunderstanding," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "We value your partnership. We respect you." Alicia slowly set her glass down. Folded her hands gently on the table. And then she looked up at him. "You didn't value my dignity," she said quietly. Not angry. Not loud. Just honest. That single sentence carried more weight than any contract. That same evening, her investment firm released an official statement. The $4.9 billion funding package had been withdrawn. To the world, it wasn't just a business move. It was a message. Social media exploded. Airline loses billions after humiliating passenger. CEO escorted off plane sparks outrage. Powerful lesson about respect goes viral. Videos from inside the plane spread across the internet. Clips from the terminal went viral. Comment sections filled up with anger, shock, and disbelief. The airline rushed to issue public apologies. Press conferences were held. Statements were written. Promises of internal investigations were made. But the damage was already done. Trust was broken. Reputation shattered. And the world was watching. The airline didn't just lose money. They lost credibility. They lost respect. All because of one moment where they failed to treat a human being with dignity. Alicia didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She didn't throw interviews or victory parties. She simply stood for something bigger than herself. While the world argued online, while news outlets repeated her name, and while the airline struggled to repair its broken reputation, Alicia chose silence over noise. She wasn't interested in headlines. She was interested in principles. Later that week, she appeared on stage at a major business leadership conference. Thousands of people watched in person, and millions streamed it live around the world. The room was silent when she stepped to the microphone. "This was never about revenge," she said calmly, her voice carrying across the crowd. "It was about respect." People leaned forward in their seats. She explained that no matter how much power someone has, no amount of wealth or influence should be needed to be treated fairly. "Respect," she said, "shouldn't be earned by titles or bank balances, it should be given freely, simply because someone is human." Those words didn't just inspire. They shook people. Behind the scenes, the airline was being forced to change. Entire training systems were rewritten. Staff members were placed into new sensitivity and anti-bias programs. Executives who had ignored warning signs were replaced. New leadership teams were brought in with clearer values and stronger accountability. Not because of the money, but because of the message. All of it happened because someone thought they could disrespect the wrong person, without realizing who she truly was. Alicia never said, "I won." She never said, "They deserved it." She just kept moving forward, quietly changing the world around her. And the world learned something unforgettable from that moment. Never judge someone by how they look. Never underestimate someone who stays calm in the face of humiliation. Never assume power always comes with noise. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one holding the future in their hands. Because respect costs nothing to give. But disrespect? That can cost billions. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.